Previously on Inside the Investigation.
But the hardest case I think I've ever done emotionally is probably a tie between the Nobody Bigsby case and a sexual assault case involving two young teenagers, a preteen, 11-year-old and a 14-year-old teenager. I'm very graphic when I share my version of events when we're presenting the evidence, and particularly when I'm doing opening and closing arguments. I've had people cry literally during opening statement.
I'm not surprised.
Just cry.
Yeah.
Because they can see it, they can feel it. And so you want to put that person in the best position to be able to experience what exactly took place at the time of that crime. We knew there were certain things that wasn't adding up. And then the thing I think that probably was the nail in the coffin for us, and we said that child is gone, is we had a dog to come out that sniffed for decomposed bodies. It was a cadaver dog.
Right.
And we knew that a dead body had been in that home.
All right, welcome back to Inside the Investigation here with Hampton Commonwealth's attorney Anton Bell. We're really kind of pulling back the curtain now that the Bigsby case is pretty much complete, at least for the murder charges. And we're at the point where we're talking about just how much investigating was going on behind the scene that y'all really could not talk about. And the community was like, why aren't they searching? Why aren't they searching? So at some point, but PD gets Codi Bigsby and then it starts the interrogation process. And it later comes out, that he asked for an attorney and was not granted one, which is against his rights.
That's correct.
That was a major twist.
It was.
That was a major twist.
It was.
When did you find out and what was your reaction?
So I found out probably like a few days after I think Chief Talbot had gone on TV. He said that everything was fine and that his statement was good and so forth, and there had been no violation. I believe he had done some type of press conference of some sort. And then they went back and they looked at every minute, second of the interrogation. And when they went back, they discovered, oh no, he did. And here's the thing, when you are in custody, particularly when you're in custody for hours or even or days, if someone is even reviewing the work that you've done, it is real easy for someone to miss something because you're going over every second of a span of days. And so they literally had to have multiple people sit down and look at these videos to see whether there was any type of violation. Of course, they discovered it. And so I was brought into the situation, read into it, and they advised me. And of course, I was not happy.
I know you weren't.
No, I was not, to say the very least. But here's the thing about the Commonwealth attorney. The Commonwealth attorney is the guardian of the gate. At the end of the day, the buck's going to stop there. And so it's not going to be, okay, I'm mad at you, you did this, and point fingers there. No, it's, okay, what do I have to do to be able to salvage what we do have?
Yeah.
What can I work with based on what is going to be admitted into evidence and what the code is going to allow to be admitted to evidence? So what I did with Chief Talbot is I said, okay, because he was very, apologetic about it. And I appreciated the stance that he took. He took a very, very professional stance. He owned it. And he said, look, what do you need in order to make this case good? I told him I want this particular detective, which was Detective Stevie Rhodey. I said, I want him to lead it. I put him on the case. I said, secondly, I need basically a crisis unit, to be quite honest, a task force.
Yeah.
And they put together a task force.
Right.
And when I said it was the bomb task force, it was like you're walking inside of this tactical arena. And they had things all on the wall. All I mean, it's a huge room, and they had broken down every piece of evidence. Hampton police did a phenomenal job. A phenomenal job. When I say recovery, that is the essential.
Because they had to bounce back after that.
They had to bounce back, and that's okay. So you're a sports person.
Sure.
Okay. The best team is the team that knows how to pivot.
Mm-hmm.
The best team is the team that knows how to respond in the midst of a situation that's not going well.
Mm-hmm.
How do you respond? What is your resiliency?
Yeah, in the face of adversity, what do you?
Oh my God. And so the bounce back was huge.
Mm-hmm.
They put that thing together, and we had from every level of captain all the way down. We had the FBI involved. I mean, just so many different stakeholders were at this table breaking. We had digital forensics. I mean, we had everything broken down. And when we were finished, it was like, game time.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
We can do this. And then the statement.
Mm-hmm.
That was the turning point.
We're talking about the written statements.
The written statement by the defendant.
Mm-hmm.
That was the turning point, because we had enough to go forth on the child neglect
right
from the beginning.
But at that, so people can understand, because they didn't abide by his rights and give him an attorney when he asked, the things that he had admitted to during the interrogation process up to that point, correct, could not be used.
Things that he admitted to up until the point in which he asked for an attorney was usable. The things
once he asked,
those things were not allowed. But by that time, the wall had come up concerning his interaction with law enforcement, and so there was nothing in there that we could use anyway that would be helpful to the case. So it really didn't hurt us, but it hurt, I believe, the perception that HPD was doing a good job and getting to the very essence of what actually happened.
Right.
So it was more so the reputation and the perception that this is a good case, that this individual actually did something wrong, that he may have actually been the one to harm his child. It hurt the perception publicly.
It definitely did. I mean, especially, there's already so much that Black men go against.
Correct.
Right? And when it comes to interactions with law enforcement. So I remember there was then a conversation created about, oh, here's another Black man not being, taken care of in the same way maybe a white suspect would have.
So I'm glad you bring that up.
Yeah.
Okay. So I keep everything real with you, right?
Me too.
Okay,
That's why we're like that.
Sometimes I'm like, please, I'm Black. And I'm not just Black, I'm a dark-skinned Black man. You don't think that I deal with racism, or I don't deal with prejudice, or deal with stereotypes? Absolutely, I do. So before I am Commonwealth attorney, before I am this Anton Bell persona that people may have, I am a Black man in America. And so I recognize the challenges, I recognize the issues, and I absolutely understand the perplexities that are associated with that. But don't get it twisted. Being Black doesn't give you a license to kill.
Right.
Being Black doesn't give you a license to get away with crime. And being Black absolutely does not give you a license to not be held accountable when you have done something that is horrendous.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that I have had sometimes with members of my own community, because I need them to understand, when an individual is not held accountable, particularly someone that's from the hood, that's not held accountable for bad acts, particularly violent acts, they're not going to the gated communities of our white counterparts. They're going back to the hood. I lived in the hood. I've seen individuals shoot at one another from my bedroom window and go back to sleep like nothing had happened, because dysfunctionalism, after a while, becomes the new norm.
Right.
So I've seen that. So I know what it feels like to be terrorized by individuals who someone who should have been protecting me should have locked them up. But because they slapped them on the wrist, or they said, no, because we don't want mass incarceration, we're not going to do anything to them, they allowed that person loose to prey on the community, and they preyed on us, our own. And no one talks about that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no one talks about that, but I talk about it because I need them to understand. Don't get it twisted. I love my people like all day long, but I will lock you up just to look at you if you go out there and shoot somebody. just to look before you can blink, I'm gonna lock you up if you out there shooting people.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lock you up.
Yeah.
Because
in turn, you're harming the Black community.
You're harming the Black community. It's blood on my hands if I don't.
Right. All right, we're gonna take that moment.
All right.
We're gonna take it, and we're gonna be right back. I don't even know what part we're on because I'm just so into this conversation because I really feel like you have so much to say, But we're gonna go back to the Bigsby case a little bit because you talked about the written confessions.
Yes.
And that really was a turning point after the biggest plot twist of we didn't give him an attorney.
Correct.
So what does that look like from your point of view? Because there was words going on as far as he was lying. They pressured him into writing these confessions, the deputies in the jail. When did you get a hold of them and what was your understanding of how they were done?
So basically I get a call saying that these from the police saying, hey, there are some confessions that apparently the defendant, Corey, had passed on to one of the guards. And he just he slid the first one. There were two initially, where he just slid them into like a meal tray, where to the cell. And the officer, they didn't know initially what it was that he was giving them. They just knew that he was giving them some correspondence. And so they took it like any other inmate was given regular correspondence. And when they read it, they were like, oh my God, the first officer was so impacted, Massey. He was so impacted. He had to go outside of the jail facility crying, trying to get himself together. And this is not some, weak punk that somebody would think, oh, he's an officer, he's a man. No, this is someone who had served in the military and was, a big brute of a guy. But the fact that this father talked about how he killed his son and buried his son messed him up. Messed him up. And then he confessed again in another similar situation and again messed that individual up. The last one was when he was being moved because of some issues that were going on and they were searching the cell. And when they searched the cell, they discovered a notebook. And in this notebook was a very explicit description of finally how Codi died, that he was beat to death, that he was pummeled.
Right, because in one version, I found him unresponsive.
Correct.
And then I panicked
Correct.
and I buried him.
Correct.
And then the other version, actually, I beat him up until he died. I panicked. I buried him.
Correct.
Both, he buried him.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, both. All of the versions, he buried them, and even gave an address. We've gone out there a couple of times. Based upon the address, there's no way he could have buried them there. But again, FBI equipment and police from multiple agencies were at these locations, and it's not possible. So we do believe he buried him. Where he buried him, we have no idea.
Well, the problem is he got such a head start.
7 months head start. So I believe it was January 30th, that January 31st, that he called in and said that Codi had gone or disappeared. Well, according to his confession and according to digital evidence, which corroborated it, he had killed Codi back in June of the previous year.
No one has seen. Well, that's why when police were like extended, how have you seen this boy in the last 3 months? Yeah. We're like, 3 months?
No.
Why are they asking that far back?
Right. Because people didn't know that we knew something wasn't right with his story. But that child had been dead for well over 7 months. He was gone. And the FBI helped us to corroborate that because we had photos of the children all the way up until that time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And then once that date occurred, I believe June 18th
Mm-hmm.
of 2021, the photos of Cody stopped.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple of photos of other children, but none of Cody. The other thing that helped us is we know that the father took DJ, the oldest child, to Busch Gardens
Mm-hmm.
and to Water Country USA like 9 days in a row, back to back. Who does that?
It's weird.
And he was the only child that was taken there because we have photos to corroborate that it was on his phone.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have photos to corroborate that he was the only child that he took with him. But the reason he took him there, because as you know,
Mm-hmm.
DJ saw Cody
Mm-hmm.
dead
Mm-hmm.
and testified in court
Yeah,
that
that was
he saw him dead. And so he was trying to get him to forget what he saw.
Mm.
He knew that DJ, all this time, he had to know DJ was the one that could bury him because DJ saw his brother and was old enough
to kind of
to
put
be able to piece it together.
Mhm.
The other two young ones were too young
yeah,
to be able to piece that together, but they were in the room.
right.
But DJ was of an age where he could talk. And so he was able to piece that together.
Wow. Did you guys ever, what does your hunch tell you about where the body may be?
I do have a hunch.
What do you think?
I
Do you think it's here? Do you think he went far? Do you think
I won't say, and I'll
Okay.
tell you why I won't say. It's because I'm very tenacious, and
if one day?
I'm still looking.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just be quick, honest with you? I'm still looking. I mean, even the earlier part of this year, we were still following leads.
Mm.
So yeah, we're very tenacious. I want to give that mom and that family
Mm.
at least that level of closure.
Yeah, that's hard. And you talked about the little boy. I'll never forget how cute he looked and his nice done up tie and his little button up with his overalls. And you know, when you have no body, Cody's body was not there, so you have to prosecute a case with no body, which is difficult. Very rarely is done
I
successfully.
think only 8 times in the history of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Very, very rare. Very, very rare. And then your only witness is a child. So what went into figuring out, do I put this child on the stand? Do I not?
So one of my background experiences is I used to prosecute child sexual assault cases.
Mm.
So I was a specialist when it came to working with children. I have done too many to even name cases. So I am very comfortable with children, very comfortable with gaining their trust, building a rapport, helping them to get that wall
Mm-hmm.
broken down. And so I basically had to get DJ to allow me into his world. And with, if you remember, the defense kept asking for continuances for one
did.
reason or after another,
Yeah.
which actually hurt them.
Mm-hmm.
Had they tried that case initially, it could have been to their benefit because DJ may not have been ready
Mm-hmm.
to share what he shared. But each day, each interaction, each bonding experience that he and I encountered, he gave me a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more, which is very usual. That's very common. And at the end of the day, he was able to give me what I needed in order to get over the hump.
Mm-hmm. We're going to talk a little bit more about his testimony that I think was, once he was done, the case was a wrap in my mind.
Okay.
We'll be right back. All right, now we are back. The final part of our interview with Anton Bell inside the investigation, our first guest. You know, when you think about the Bigsby case, we talked about his young son who was 7 years old at the time who took the stand. What to you was the part when you're prepping him and you're hearing his story? And I think I even wrote down what he said, something like, I was thinking he was dead.
Yes.
He's looking at his little brother and he said, and I think you asked him, what were you thinking? I was thinking he was dead.
Mhm.
And you could hear an audible gasp.
In a courtroom.
You could.
So the reason I asked you that in the courtroom, because as you know, it was a two-way camera system.
Mhm.
So I was in a different room with
Oh,
DJ,
yes, that's right.
and you guys were in the courtroom with the jury. And so I didn't know how people were responding to DJ. But I, again, believe that you have to put people in the mindset of they're in the room when it took place, that they're in the place where the crime actually took place. And so I had him describe how he was feeling. I had him describe how Codi looked, his face, the bruises, the scratches. I had him describe whether he was breathing. When you shook him, did he move? I had him if you remember, I had him get on the table and demonstrate and what position was he in. He put himself in a fetal position on his own.
I remember that. He climbed on the table.
Yes.
And put himself in fetal position. That was another moment because you're just seeing little Codi.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But you have to do that because, again, no one's there where the crime takes place. And so you have to present that case in such a way that people can see it. They can actually visualize it. They can say, yeah, I can see how that happened. I can see how that happened. Yeah, that is very believable. And that makes sense. That adds up. Because guess what? You don't leave your common sense at the door when you walk into that jury room. And so I need them to be able to picture it. Because if you can picture it, you can get there.
When the verdict was read, 2 hours. And I mean, for a case of that magnitude, for them to come back that quick.
Hour and a half.
Hour and a half. Get me right. An hour and a half. Did you know when they came back, hour and a half later, you were like, it's done? Or were you like?
No, I knew it was done before I put on my first witness because I'm a man of faith. And I really believe God was sharing with me, you just have to go to course, but stay focused. My number one priority in that case, when putting on that case, was stay focused. There was a lot of theatrics with the counsel on the other side.
We're not gonna have time to touch on all that.
I know, but it was so much foolishness. But nonetheless, it was a lot of theatrics, and they were purposely trying to create distractions with some of the theatrics.
Yeah,
but
6 bond hearings.
Yes, but stay focused, stay the course, stick to the law, stick to the facts. You're going to get there. And everything lined up exactly the way it should have lined up. And as a man of faith, I just believe God was going to execute justice, and he did.
And he did. 45 years.
45 years.
He'll spend the rest of his life locked up.
Yeah, 45 years.
And
that's the max, too.
Right. That's what you don't play.
I don't play.
So
that was the max.
You're going to throw the book at him.
Yeah, I did.
And you did. So that case is wrapped up. That came off the heels of the Tomlin case, which was another huge case that you had to tackle.
Which I believe, theorizing, he was watching the Tomlin case, and that's why he waited 7 months to report him missing, because he was about to move that day into a house. And I believe because of Julia Tomlin, that had similar, scary.
It was, because I covered that case too.
Yes. I believe he knew that we would go and search different areas and potentially find him. And that's why it was 7 months.
Because y'all looked at the steam plant again.
Yes, we did.
For the Bigsby case.
We did.
Where you found Tomlin. So we are wrapping up. We could talk forever, but you have some really big things going on. So let's talk about let's end on a good note.
So, I'm a prosecutor by position, but my passion is to position young people for purpose. And so I launched my LLC, Envision Communications. And so we're just basically trying to help young people understand who they are. And when you understand who you are, you can walk in your purpose and be successful in life. So I'm about to release a book called the Challenge, which is reaching the next generation, and that's going to be released in August. I'm going back out into the community doing courageous conversations with the Commonwealth, featuring the crew, which is a podcast of some of my friends,
Nice.
Dr. Kevin Swan, Avian Lyons, Marcia, and Jason Covington, and we're doing that, and we are just trying to help individuals understand that if we don't address trauma, trauma will address you. So let's get to it early so that you don't have to come and see me in the courtroom. I want to work myself out of a job. And so let's help our community heal so that we can be better.
So the target audience of the book, is that going to be high schoolers? Is it going to be parents? Is it going to be everybody?
It's going to be everyone, because everyone can get something out of the book. But I want every parent to read this book, because it gives you a dream model of what we as mentors, parents, we are our children's first mentor. And so I want parents to understand what it is that we have to do on a consistent basis in order to make an impact with our children. My son is a great kid, but my son is the product of work, sacrifice, prayer, understanding, apologizing to your kid when you mess it up, because we can blow it as parents. And so he's not the product of he's just a perfect kid. No, he's the product of what we put into our kids. And our kids, we can put the best into them and they can still make mistakes. And so imagine if you fail to put what you need to put into them, what is the likelihood of their demise? And so I want to help our kids to be able to be their best.
And you already do with the JCAP program that's taken off.
Come on. And this year, our keynote speaker is going to be the gubernatorial nominee, Gabby. I'm messing her name up. Spainberger, Abigail Spainberger.
Abigail.
I'm messing her name up. She would kill me for that. But she's going to be our keynote speaker.
Fabulous.
So I'm looking forward to that. But we've been doing it since 2017. And it's a boot camp, 100% free. I took drug money from the drug dealers and gave it to our kids. Hello.
And that's why you're in the position you're in.
Yes.
And that's why you're so successful. And so I really want to just thank you so much for coming on and talking. And I think people are going to take so much away from our conversation, not even about the investigation part, but just what you stand for and why you do what you do.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. That was the first episode of Inside the Investigation.